I mention the word that no corrupt cop ever wants to hear. From scams and sickness all the way to anxiety and existential doubts, there is a big ugly side to quitting medicine to travel full time. Hello. So currently we're in San Cristobal, Mexico, and we have been through Mexico just a couple of months ago, but we've actually come back to Mexico because we're meeting up with some friends here, and this is actually where we're flying out from. And I'm currently sitting on top of a lovely hostel, got a little table in front of me, my laptop, my coffee, and I'm good to go. So thank you again for joining Unemployed Doctor Travels the World full time. I've currently not been working for around 11 months now, after about 7 years of work. My fiance and I are on a sabbatical, or what I like to call a mini retirement, and I think it's very easy to think this is the dream lifestyle. Of course, it's been incredible, but it's also been incredibly hard. I'm not sure what other YouTubers you watch, but all these people you admire, they may look successful and happy, but it often comes at a cost that it's easy to ignore. Today, I'm going to discuss the costs and the negatives of choosing this path. So if you're considering if this lifestyle is for you, you can make an educated decision before you make the jump. From scams and sickness all the way to anxiety and existential doubts. Here's what I've learned on this journey. Oh yeah, you may be one of my regular watchers. My hair is bright white. I hope that's not confusing you too much, but my fiance had some leftover hair dye and we decided to do it as a Boxing Day activity. So yeah, that explains why. And also, I now have the freedom to do whatever I want with my hair because I don't have to turn up to work tomorrow. And yeah, I didn't realise how white it actually was, but it looks quite shocking. So we're going to kick this off with the smaller, more annoying things about travelling, before we get to the bigger psychological and life issues. Firstly, living out of a backpack. Everything that I own at the moment is in 2 bags. This one big rucksack with my clothes and toiletries and all that kind of stuff, and one smaller rucksack which is my laptop, my camera gear. In some ways you do get used to it, not having much stuff. I guess this is what minimalists do. And I've actually met travellers who are travelling with far less than me. A lot of them travel only with carry-ons, so no checked-in luggage, just something they can carry around with them. And to be honest, I'm quite envious of them because it just looks so easy, but also that comes with a cost of not having F-all to wear or F-all to use. They can't carry around these big cameras or laptops, etc. So interesting side note, there's a woman across the street who just opened a window. Literally for 2 days straight, we just heard moaning coming from that side of the road. Pretty sure she was giving birth. And now I can see her nursing a baby, so that's really, really lovely to see. And because I'm living out of a backpack, obviously it means I don't have much clothing. I don't know if you've been watching my videos for a while, but I literally have 2 t-shirts that I cycle through. And then I have a couple of vests for hot days, which is fine, I don't mind. Steve Jobs used to wear the same clothes every single day. But at least his clothes were clean. There's been many a time I've had to re-wear the same clothes for about 5 days straight. Don't judge me, I know you'd be doing the exact same thing if you're in my position. Steve Jobs used to wear the same outfit every day to reduce cognitive load. I do it because laundry costs $2 a kilo. Now, of course, this completely depends on where you travel, but if you're doing it on the cheap like us, which you kind of have to if you're doing the long-term thing, unless you're super rich, you're going to have to stick to Southeast Asia and Latin and Central America. And I've mentioned these things before, but mosquitoes. And I don't think I'll ever get used to them. I've tried everything on the list of mankind to prevent them or treat bites, but no matter what I do, I still get bitten, I still react, they're still so itchy and annoying. And in fact, I actually made a whole nother video about this, about treating and preventing mosquito bites. So I'll leave that in the description if you're interested. And it's not just mosquitoes, there are other biting insects too. Just a couple of weeks ago, I sat next to an ant's nest, and of course I didn't know it was an ant's nest, but I had ants crawling up all over my left leg. I got absolutely destroyed because it was dark and I couldn't see it, and they destroyed my foot, and now I'm having an allergic reaction which is spreading all over my body, which isn't ideal. Let me show you. So my armpit, this armpit. But yeah, it's like super, super itchy. I've never had an allergic reaction like this before. And I must say, it Sucks. Another day in the life of a traveller. Another one of the sucky things that you have to put up with. But I had a full-on allergic reaction, which just blew up in my armpits, my groin, and my whole body was covered in these hives. And it's not just mosquitoes, it's not just ants. Got stung by a wasp when I was filming episode 29. Just got stung by a wasp. Ow. And of course that got infected and I developed some cellulitis in my left foot. Yeah. It's really red, hot. To me it looks like cellulitis, a skin infection. If I saw that in hospital, I would start the patient on antibiotics. Luckily I've been carrying around a box of antibiotics for this whole year, specifically prepared for this moment. So I got to deploy those when I knew my foot was infected. By the way, I am actually a doctor and I don't recommend hoarding your antibiotics. You should use your antibiotics as prescribed by your doctor. Although in fact, in most of these places you can just buy antibiotics over the counter, which is a horrible idea with antibiotic resistance and everything. Please don't buy antibiotics over the counter. I genuinely believe antibiotic resistance is going to kill us. So yeah, only get it from a doctor. And moving on to the bigger animals. Nature is amazing. We've seen some beautiful animals. Stingrays at our feet in Belize, monkeys in Indonesia, sloths in Colombia, drunk British lads in Laos. But one thing I really struggle to get used to is the wild dogs. Most of the time they're pretty chill, but every once in a while they're going to chase you down the street for no particular reason. And they poo everywhere. Literally everywhere. I actually struggle sightseeing because instead of looking at the sights, I'm looking at the floor trying to dodge these landmines. And Guatemala is particularly bad for some reason. Don't know why that is. Dodging poo while sightseeing really adds an element of adventure. Like Indiana Jones, but with less treasure and more shit. I don't know if this is TMI, too much information, but I have to paint a realistic picture of travelling. I don't care who you are, how much of an iron stomach you have, but you're gonna get diarrhea whilst travelling at some point. There have been times where both Joe and I have had diarrhea continuously for what feels like weeks. Sometimes it's very unpleasant, it's painful, but a lot of the time it just becomes your new normal. Oh, that's my 7th runny poo of the day. Okay, standard. Partly it's due to you not being used to the local bacteria. Partly it's due to poor sanitary conditions, or you getting spiked by the tap water on your salad or on ice, etc, etc. If it looks dodgy, it probably is dodgy. But unfortunately some of the best foods you try will be prepared in less than ideal conditions. It's all part of the experience, I guess. By week 2, Joe and I weren't asking, how are you feeling today? It was more like, how's the consistency today? And it's not just the food poisoning. Turns out you can also get poisoned by methanol. So there was this big thing in the news recently where 6 people died at a hostel called Nana Backpackers in Laos because instead of being served ethanol, alcohol in their drinks, they were served methanol. And we were actually staying at this exact hostel earlier in the year, probably around April, May sometime. And Joe got super sick. I'm not going to go too much into the details of that story in this video. I think I want to wait for all that to settle down. And of course, my thoughts and prayers go to the families and friends of the people affected by that. Now you think if you're not working, you don't need to set an alarm to wake up for your job at 9 AM. And to be honest, most of the time you don't. You get to wake up when you want, you get to go to bed when you want, and it's great. However, there will be times where you have to wake up at an inhumane time or essentially pull an all-nighter. Example, 2 days ago we got a shuttle bus from Guatemala to Mexico and we had to wake up at 3 AM to get picked up at 3:30 AM. That's not even morning. What is that? That's the middle of the night. And it's not just transport, most tours will start super early. We did a volcano hike last week and we had to do a 4 AM start to see the sunrise. But to be honest, that volcano hike was life-changing, and if you want to see that video, I'll leave the link in the description. And it's not just buses, but if you want to get a cheap flight, you're going to have to wake up at a ridiculous time. There have been many times where Joe and I have debated if an extra 3 hours in bed is worth $100, and I still don't know what the answer to that is. And your sleep can get pretty bad, not just from weird wake-up times and bedtimes, but also just terrible sleeping environments, uncomfy beds, extreme heat, or just ridiculous noise. Dogs barking, always barking, and roosters, always roosting. I thought roosters were just supposed to roost when the sun rises, and what I've learned from this trip is that they just roost all f***ing night. They just don't stop. And it's not just noisy animals, noisy people as well. You know, speakers have a max volume that you can't turn up past a certain point. I don't think Filipinos and Guatemalans have that option. The volume can just keep going up. If they're playing music, it's on max. If they're speaking on a microphone, it's on max. And we actually now walk around with earplugs because we know at any moment in time, our eardrums can just get destroyed. I've got these earplugs, which have been saving my ears on this trip. Okay, the sun's just starting to peek out and it's making my hair look even more white than it already is. So we may have to change spots very shortly. And it's not just the noise pollution. The air pollution in some of these places is horrific. So I don't know if you've heard of Brian Johnson, but he's the longevity guy that wants to live forever. He has an air pollution monitor at home. He won't go outside if the air pollution's at a certain level. I think if he came to Southeast Asia or Latin America, he would just never be able to step foot outside his hotel. Of course, when you're in the countryside, it's fine, but in the big cities, I don't think I've ever inhaled so many fumes in my life. I pride myself on not being a smoker, not being a vapor, but I think this year's probably taken years off my life just from the amount of carcinogens I've inhaled walking around the street in Thailand or Colombia. But I guess we'll see in about 40 years' time. That sun is getting a little bit too low. We'll do a little bit more. Now my missus has just come up and it's really awkward when I'm speaking to the camera. I always try and do these videos in private, but she's come to disturb me. This shot is just getting ridiculous now because I've got this thing right here and my hair looked even more white than it already is, and Joe's laughing at me, so we're gonna have to move. Okay, that should buy us a little bit more time. Okay, we've talked about the nitty-gritty details of traveling. Let's talk money. I've already mentioned that we're not working, we're living off savings, but when you go traveling, you need to be aware of something called foreign tax, or more colloquially known as white tax. If you have white skin, you more than likely will be paying a higher price for things. And you don't necessarily have to be white, but it's just a little bit easier to identify you as a tourist when you look different. And I don't mind paying more than the locals. I completely understand when we come to these places, we may as well be walking around with dollar signs above our head. I don't need to remind you that if you are middle income in the US, Australia, or the UK, you're already in the top 2% of income in the entire world. So I don't mind if there's different prices for entry into a temple or the local sites, because they need the money, and if they didn't, locals wouldn't be able to afford to be able to see their own country. But what really gets me is when people feel entitled to your money. Especially people in positions of authority. Okay, quick story time. I never thought we'd be negotiating with corrupt police on the side of the Mexican highway, but here we were, sweating bullets and running out of time. This happened about 2 months ago on a 1 week long road trip around Mexico. We had rented a car to visit some absolutely stunning waterfalls and towns, and everything had gone smoothly until it didn't. On the final day, we were driving back to the rental company, already cutting it close to the return deadline. And then out of nowhere, we were flagged down by the police. They waved us to the side of the road, took pictures of the number plates, returned back to their car, and neither Joe or I had a clue what was going on. But something felt off. The officer came back with photos of our plate and a speed next to it. The time of the speeding was only 2 minutes ago, which was very suspicious because 2 minutes ago we were sitting on the side of the road with the cops. And before that, we were just sitting in traffic. He said we had to pay an on-the-spot fine of 4,000 pesos, which is roughly about $200. Of course, my stomach dropped. Joe and I were scrambling, figuring out what to do. Our Spanish wasn't great at that time, so we had to use Google Translate to actually work out what was going on. And we explained that we didn't have that cash on us. Then things got even fishier. They offered us a 50% discount if we paid right then and there, and we could pay in whatever currency we liked. Pesos, euros, dollars. It felt like a game, but we were losing. And I was panicking. Our rental car was overdue and the officers were growing impatient. I felt trapped. Do we pay, refuse, or risk something worse? That's when I had an idea. Through Google Translate, I mentioned the word that no corrupt cop ever wants to hear. I need to speak to my embassy first. The tension in the air shifted. The cops muttered something to each other that we couldn't understand and returned to their car. Joe and I just sat in silence, trying not to look as freaked out as we felt on the inside. A few minutes later, they came back, waved us off, and just let us go. We got really lucky. Even Mexicans carry cash in their car to use as a bribe in case they get pulled over by corrupt police. And it's not just about the money, it's the fear, the uncertainty, and the realization that you're completely at their mercy. And it made me think about how much we take for granted safety and fairness in some places. Traveling doesn't just show you the beauty of the world, but it reminds you of some of the harsher realities too. Traveling isn't just about beautiful views, it's about navigating situations you'd never face back home and coming out stronger because of them. And that's just one scam. I could tell you about all the times we've been scammed this year, but that would literally take an entire video, in fact multiple videos. Like the time we were in Vietnam and I was shouted at by a Vietnamese shop owner telling me that I wasn't allowed to walk on Train Street where all the other tourists were walking, and I had to go into her shop. And she would call the police on me if I didn't. Or when you take photos with the fruit ladies in Colombia and they tell you it's donation based, but when you go to give them a donation, they tell you it's not enough money and start getting very angry at you when you don't comply. The same goes for the freestyle rappers who give you a personalized rap without you asking for it. That rap was pretty sick though, to be fair. I'd pay them again. But the visa scam you, the ATM scam you, which can lead to a little bit of... Quitting your job is great. No alarm, no boss, no incessant bleeps on my pager. However, one thing you will have to deal with is only seeing your bank balance go down. And you know it's not going up anytime soon. And I admit that does give a sense of anxiety that some people will just not think is worth it. Trading that certain income for uncertainty, you have to be mentally prepared for that. And I admit a lot of people in this world have that anxiety even with a job. If that's you, I wish you all the best in life. But this trip has actually got me thinking a lot about money. Like, it's all become very strange to me. The way I've started seeing it is money is just a way to get other humans to do things for you. Drive me across the border in a shuttle bus, cook me a nice Mexican meal, or make this bracelet for me. And I get to do this because I provided some value to some other humans in my job a year ago. I get to eat this delicious meal cooked by a Guatemalan grandmother because I stuck my finger up an old man's ass 2 years ago. At work, obviously. Doctors stick their fingers up people's butts. It's part of the job, checking the prostate, etc. It ain't pretty, but someone's got to do it. I don't know what I can and cannot say right now, or if I should edit that out the video. Moving on. I think the sun today really just wants to highlight my hair. Now it looks like we're going to have to change location again because I've just got this white, bright light on my head. 2 seconds. Okay, so this should buy us a little bit more time. I'm just sitting on the floor. Do you like routine? If so, consider this. You probably won't have one. Now, I'm very much a man of routine. I love waking up, having a cold shower, meditating, making a coffee, working out. I love doing things in my order. It's all very nice. But as you know, when you travel, there's a lot of factors that are outside of your control. You have to be at certain places at certain times. You have to forego your workout, your meditation session. I know my workout schedule is taking a bit of a backseat this trip, which is fine. I'm happy to put it on pause for the time being. And we try our best to squeeze in a workout here and there. If there's a gym nearby, we'll go to it, or doing some pull-ups at a local park. I'm blessed because the main exercise that I do back home is calisthenics, which is basically body weight training. Thankfully, I can do that anywhere. You can do handstands anywhere. You just need a bit of floor space. You can even do a workout in your room if you want. But I imagine if your chosen sport was something like tennis, you'd probably have to give it up for a period of time. And I've definitely lost some of my gains. I've lost some of my muscle on this trip. And I guess also diet plays a huge factor in this. Sometimes you don't know when your next meal is going to be. When we took our 12-hour shuttle bus the other day from Guatemala to Mexico, we were lucky enough to have a cup noodle on the bus. Not exactly the most nutritious meal. We've talked a bit about the anxiety of not having a job and not having income, but if you're in a skilled profession, I guess the other anxiety is that you're going to become de-skilled from taking such a long break from work. If you don't use it, you lose it, which is definitely true. I know for a fact when I go back to work, it won't be as easy as when I left. There'll be gaps in my knowledge, things that I've forgotten, procedural skills will be harder. I'll feel less confident, but I'm actually in a somewhat fortunate position because I have taken a mini retirement before. I took 8 months out of work to travel, maybe about 4 years ago. And yeah, there was a bit of an adjustment period going back. But within 2 weeks, I felt like I was at my previous level. It's kind of like going to the gym. Once you've hit a certain fitness level, it's quite easy to return to that level if you've already been there. And now I've got more years of working behind me, I feel more confident when I return, things are going to come back quicker. But it's not just self-doubt, it's also doubt from others. I'm in a very lucky position where everyone that matters in my life is fully supportive on this journey. And I think this is huge. I know some people, if they tried to do something like this, they'd have a lot of judgment from friends, from family. A lot of parents would just outright refuse their children doing something like this. Taking a year off work, are you crazy? And in fact, these days, the only people that question my lifestyle are people online, the haters in the comments. But it's good, it's opened my eyes to different points of view, and I welcome the haters. If you've got any hateful comments, leave me one below. I'm happy to be reminded that I don't want to be like you at all. Okay, Chris, you've been complaining a lot in this video. We get it. You don't like being scammed, you don't like living out a backpack, you don't like dog poo. Then why are you doing this? I admit, I have been complaining. I guess where I'm going with this is, despite all these things, despite the uncertainty, all the bad stuff, I would not trade this experience for the world. If it were all just easy, if there wasn't some kind of struggle, ironically, it wouldn't be that great. We can't wish for only sunny days because then we'd have droughts and everyone would die. The upside of taking this risk and taking on all these annoying things is I get to live my life in a way that aligns with me. I've given myself space to actually work out what I value, and to those people who don't really know what they want out of their life, let me tell you this. Finding out what you value is finding the space to be able to take a break, and then you realize what you naturally want to spend your time doing. Give people free time, and they'll just start doing stuff, and then they'll find out what they like. Of course, there are hard times on any endeavor, but this travel has given me space to work on a dream. I see what I naturally want to spend time doing, and it's shown me what's actually possible for my life. I don't have to bust my ass for 40 years, working in a job that I'm not crazy about. I've learned what it feels like to live differently, to work differently, to make money on my own. If it's possible for me to work on a laptop in Bali, talking to a camera, what else have I not yet considered? My mind is open and I'm ready to see where it might take me. There is a big, ugly side to quitting medicine to travel full time. The daily struggles, the uncertainty, the anxieties. I was uncertain before this trip, but now I'm more confident than ever what the possibilities for life really are.
Yo al de Queen, yo al de Queen, yo al de Queen, yo al de Queen. Bienvenidos hagan la city de Cartagena. Venimos a improvisarle por toda la carretera. Cada día se improvisa impacto la bandera. Música rapera es lo que corre por toda mi pena. Nice cover, beautiful relationship. Pues con tu Cartagena, bienvenida a mi país. Si tú sabes que rapeamos y este ritmo se retira. You do like Shakira. Waka waka. Mira la cara que tengo, la chica que tengo talento, la pista que pongo yo, te la invento, la tipa, la te tengo, no puedo meterle como yo le meto la puta, me tira la mala. Tú eres del país de los canguros, de los koalas. El patrón Cartagena, welcome. Listen to me, she's the queen, you are strong. Improvisación, bienvenido a Cartagena. ¿Qué? Estamos aquí lo que suena bacano, y tú lo sabes, curry mi pano, solo corrí con todo mi paisano, para que tú veas, le metemos mano. Así lo hacemos, compadre, con el nivel. Shakira, Blessing, Australia. Yo al de Queen, yo al de Queen, yo al de Queen, yo al de Queen. Oye baby, I like it, tu pizza y la nariz. Nice couple, beautiful relationship. Vino con el labio, Shakira y Leonardo DiCaprio.